There's trouble for the Maldives. The International Monetary Fund has warned its government. And what is the warning? Be careful of your debt. It's a timely warning for President Mohamed Muizzu. He's been revamping Maldivian foreign policy. India out, China in. That is his mantra. That's Muizzu's new policy. India out, China in. And China, as we know, is the biggest loan shark in town. So how will this equation work out? We'll get to that in a bit. But first, let's look at the IMF warning. Here's what the International Monetary Fund has said, and I'm quoting. Without significant policy changes, the overall fiscal deficits and public debt are projected to stay elevated, and the Maldives remains at high risk of external and overall debt distress. Let me underline those words. High risk of debt distress. You know what that means? It means your loans and liabilities are way too much. You could soon be unable to make payments. In other words, a default is a possibility. The Maldives is at high risk of that situation. And how much debt are we talking about? In 2021, their external debt was around $3 billion. The Maldivian GDP is all of $5.4 billion. External debt is $3 billion. So the foreign debt is 55% of the national GDP. Total debt is even higher, almost 110% of the GDP. And where does China figure in this? Beijing is the biggest lender to the Maldives. They owe 42% of their foreign debt to China, which is around $1.2 billion. And that's a lot of money for the Maldives. Higher debt also means higher servicing costs. This year, Mali will have to spend $300 million on debt servicing. Basically, interest and repayment, $300 million. By 2026, that number could reach $1.07 billion. In other words, distress. This data raises two important questions. Number one, how did Mali rack up this debt? And number two, what is Muizzu's plan to pay it back? To be fair, these loans predate him. The Chinese debt was mostly taken during Abdulla Yameen's presidency. He was in power from 2013 to 2018. Yameen too was pro-China. So he took a lot of loans from Beijing. Then came the Wuhan virus pandemic. Mali's top source of income was shut down. That's tourism. It makes up 25% of their national GDP, also 32% of all jobs in the Maldives. But there was no tourism during the lockdown. So when tourism disappeared, so did income. At the same time, expenses kept increasing, more medical spending, more vaccine purchases, more money for doctors and nurses. All of this required additional loans, which is why Maldivian debt is so high today. Now we come to the second question. What is Muizzu's repayment plan? To cozy up to China, believe it or not. Last month, he traveled to Beijing. He held talks with President Xi Jinping. Some 20 deals were signed by the two leaders. They cover a lot of different sectors like infrastructure, tourism, climate resilience, and a whole lot of others. But that's all we know. We don't know how much money is coming in, when it's coming in, or whether it's loans or grants. In what form is this money coming? The deals are shrouded in secrecy. But after the trip to Beijing, Muizzu did make an announcement. He said a Chinese technical team would visit the Maldives. What for? To consider restructuring loans. We haven't heard any update on that. But we've seen how the Chinese negotiate. They play hardball. In Sri Lanka, people did not have fuel to run ambulances. The country had virtually collapsed. But even then, China played hardball. President Muizzu should be mindful of all of that. China's debt and help always comes with strings attached. We're already seeing evidence of that. A Chinese spy ship reached the Maldives today. Mali says it's a routine voyage. No research or studying, just replenishments. But China hinted it could be more.
Over the years, China and Maldives have maintained close cooperation in the field of marine scientific research. China appreciates Maldives' decision, according to relevant regulations in international law and based on sovereignty and China-Maldives friendship, to provide convenience and assistance for Chinese research vessels to enter its port.
So the ball is now in Muizzu's court. He knows the numbers. I'm sure he's heard the IMF warning. Does he still want to get closer to China, or does he want to keep his options open? At the end of the day, it is his call. He is the president. But at stake is the livelihood of 500,000 Maldivians.